Hi, I'm Bill Sanders, and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. And this is pretty much an introductory tape for those of you who are starting to collect watches. And the first thing I wanted to take a look at was the notion of high horology, or as the French call it, haute horologerie. So, what is this about? Well, basically, high horology is the art and science of time and time mechanisms, and high horology essentially is looking at the very best of that. So, what we're going to look at, we're going to start with the very top. And at the very top is a thing that was referred to as the Big Three or the Holy Trinity. And so, in looking at that, we're going to be able to find out what is the very best, and then in deciding what you'd like to add to your collection, we can go from that starting point. Now, the three brands, the three watches that are there are Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, and Audemars Piguet. There is lots and lots of discussion about, well, shouldn't some other kind of brand be included? And I'd like to hear your opinions on it, because people have some very strong opinions about, well, how come these guys are there and watches that I like to collect aren't there? So that is where we'll start today. It'll take it as a point of discussion, not as something that is delivered on high, so to speak. Patek Philippe, first of all, it's one of the things. A lot of famous people have Pateks. Pablo Picasso. The Dalai Lama has a Patek Philippe that was given to him by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He still wears it. And some other characters like Vladimir Putin, and even Queen Elizabeth has Patek Philippe. Now, the second brand we're going to take a look at is Vacheron Constantin. Queen Elizabeth had one of those. So did Princess Di. Napoleon's grandson, Napoleon III, Pope Pius XI, had a Vacheron Constantin, and so did King Farouk of Egypt. With Audemars Piguet, again, we'll start off with royalty, and some people may see it as royalty that's the Shah of Iran had an Audemars Piguet. A lot of celebrities: Justin Timberlake, Don Cheadle, LeBron James, Leo Messi, and even El Chapo, the notorious drug king, had a Audemars Piguet. Well, the kinds of people that had them are people who can generally afford to get the very best. And so what makes the very best? And like I said, this is a point of often contention and discussion. Well, one of the things that makes it the very best is called manufacture de horlogerie, which means that the movement within your watch is made by the people who make the watch. Now, this isn't to say, by any stretch of the imagination, that if they use what the makings from another company called the makings put together called an ébauche, for example, Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin and Audemars Piguet have all used ébauches made by other companies. Now, the companies that they tend to use ébauches from tend to be at the very top too. So you have, for example, Jaeger-LeCoultre has made Iboshes for, I think, all three of them. Frederick Piguet has made some, and then the difference between what a really top company does and one that's just turning out a lot of stuff is that they are made with additional features. Now, by additional features, this has to do with the finishing work. It has to do with the care in which they're put together and any changes that they may make. Okay, well, why are these three companies considered the Holy Trinity or the Big Three? Who made that decision? Well, that's what's the debatable part. First of all, they've been around a long time. They have a very deep history. I mean, like Napoleon's grandson had a Vacheron Constantin. That has to go back a few years. And so that's one thing. They have a very rich history. I think that Vacheron Constantin is considered the oldest. At one time, they had the most expensive watch ever made. It was a specially made one for somebody or other. Then Patek Philippe came along, and they made another very expensive one. So they tend to have the most expensive, and also they have the most expensive watches. So the point that I'm trying to make isn't so much how expensive they are, how exclusive they are, because you can get any one of these. They're, like I said, they're more expensive, but there's what's called vintage watches, and you can begin collecting vintage watches from the Holy Trinity. All right. The types of watches that we're going to be looking at include really two types of movements. There are three general types of movements. There quartz, which is probably the most common. Over 90% of the watches made today are made with quartz movements. And the reason they're made with quartz movements is that quartz is very accurate and less expensive to make than your mechanicals. There are two types of mechanicals, the kind that you wind up and the kind that you have. This is the mechanical I have right here. It's a Vacheron Constantin overseas, and it winds because of the movement of my wrist. Now, the quartz were taken out. The reason they are sort of as the same thing with like an Apple Watch that runs on a computer. We're taking those out because the horology that we're going to be looking at is generally mechanical, either automatic or wind up. And the important thing about this is getting your feedback. I mean, like maybe you think, well, that's not a very good thing, or that's something that I never heard of, or I didn't think was important, but you think is important. So this will be a discussion. And like I said, it's the art and science. We can talk about two types of watches in that respect. There's a fashion watch, and there's one that focuses on the movement. We're going to be looking at the ones that focus on the movement. And we can further divide that into two basic categories, what we call sports watches and dress watches. And we're going to be looking at both of those. Ladies' watches, yes, definitely. There's some fantastic ladies' watches, but unfortunately, most of the ladies' watches that they make today have a quartz movement. And that's because they can get quartz into a smaller size. However, the movements and the Iboshes that make up the mechanicals of some of the smaller sites, those are very interesting to us, and they require a lot of skill. Same thing with the thinness. The thinner they are, the more difficult they are. And so we're going to consider all of these things and have a lot of fun looking at these. And the first ones, like I said, we'll start with the Holy Trinity, the three watch brands that are considered to be sort of models of what a good horological device should look like. Okay, let's hear from you, see what you have to say. Click the old subscribe button and stick with us, and we're off and running. Take care.